Yeah, there's a bit of background. I don't think it's really important, to be honest, but it's there for you, and because Amy put it together again. So I'm going to talk about my experience from leadership camp, and I think what this is me. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my experiences at leadership camp, and I think on reflection, what I think are the things that I gained from it, and hopefully what you guys will experience, and how you might want to approach it. By no means is there a monopoly on how you should do it, but I'll begin. So, about 7 years ago, I think it was, I'm sitting at my computer, and I don't think it was on Facebook. This was back in the day when we had MSN Messenger, so I'm showing a bit of my age there. And then I get a message from Sarumpal, no less, telling me, come to leadership camp. And he goes off into the spiel, and I'm sort of half convinced, mainly because of the people that were going there, and sort of Sarumpal was there, and I felt like, all right, I'm guilted into it now. But I went along, but the thing that was going through my mind was sort of, I'm a high school graduate. I'm only half a year into my uni course. What am I going to learn from a Singaporean naval commander and like a businessman? It doesn't really seem to make any sense to me. But yeah, I mean, like the only leading that I'd done up to that time was in year 6, which is more of like a figurehead position. You're kind of like school captain, but it doesn't mean anything. So, as it turned out, I think I took a lot away from the experience. And the 3 things that I specifically want to talk about are that I think you'll get away with inspiration, ideas, and access. And when I talk about access, I mean to people and those ideas as well. So, I want to tell you a story about when I got my first sort of corporate gig in the workforce. And so I was in 2nd year, and I made the decision to actually grow my hair back, because I'd cut it as a young kid, in about year 8. And I don't think I'd fully grappled with the idea of what the Sikh identity meant to me. So going into the workforce, into a corporate environment, surrounded by people that don't look like you, was something that I had to deal with. And it was, yeah. Yeah, so that's just kind of got me off my flow. But what happened at that time was I came to the leadership camp, and I actually got to meet some of the biggest inspirations. I'm not going to lie, Ash, you're lucky. But some of the biggest inspirations in my life, and they've actually shaped the way that I've responded to things. So each of those people, which were Ash, Colonel Chopra, and Uncle Harvinder, left a very lasting mark on me. They inspired me to believe, firstly, that being a Sikh and being cool wasn't mutually exclusive. Up until that point, it was debatable, but after that, I think, in my mind, it was definite that you could actually be cool. And the next thing was that being Sikh, being cool, and being successful, while sounding outrageous, wasn't, and it was possible as well. So, that's the sort of first thing that emerged from there, and that's led on to a couple of, I guess, corporate successes for me, which I can talk to you about personally, because I've managed to do what I want to do in the workforce, and get the role that I wanted. But the second thing that I wanted to talk about was the ideas, right? So I know TED conferences seem to have a bit of a monopoly on on sharing good ideas, but I'm going to let you on a little secret. Over here, you're going to hear some good ones as well. Depending on which course you are. Some of them are a bit iffy. No, I'm kidding. They're all good. So, I remember the first time that I came to camp. I think this was the 2nd year of it running, I think it was. And we had to do a business pitch. Being a high school graduate and not really understanding the concept of a business pitch, you kind of go into it and you just throw some words around. They're usually buzzwords and jargon, and you think you'll get away with stuff. But when the guy who's sitting in the table assessing your speech actually has done all that and understands the words and knows how meaningless they are, you kind of get drilled pretty quickly. So I'm still working through the psychological issues that I picked up as a result of being at that time. But I'm sort of, yes, it was your fault, yeah. But the thing is that getting hammered here and learning those skills is significantly cheaper than going out and losing billions of dollars of business in the workforce. So, you know, don't be afraid of challenging yourself, putting yourself out there, and you know, even making mistakes, because that's what this environment's for. Now, the final thing that I wanted to talk about was access. And what I meant by access, as I said earlier, was access to people and ideas. Now, you're surrounded by people who are like-minded in that they're ambitious and they want to be leaders, right? And that's an awesome thing, because it means that you're safe. So you can go out, talk to these people about things that you're interested in, and there's a high probability that other people are going to be interested in those things too. You don't get that in the normal sort of world. I've worked in areas of Sydney that people aren't as ambitious in, to put it mildly. So last year, this is another story. Last year through the SIG camp, I was lucky enough to actually meet somebody who chances are only half of you actually care about. That's because he's a sports person. And then of the actual half of you that care about sport, only 48% of you will care about this sport because it's rugby union. For the 2% remaining, it was Nick Farr-Jones, right? And so Nick Farr-Jones, to the broader audience, was the ex-Australian captain of the Wallabies. Right? That's a pretty awesome thing in any sport, really. And through meeting him, I was, well, all right, let me take a step back. So before I met Nick, I was actually working in risk management, right? And I was in a tough spot because it's not where I wanted to work, and I had an aspiration to get somewhere else. Through meeting Nick, you know, I basically got his contact details, and then I went out of my way to meet up with him again. And over the course of a year, I basically took up his time, asked him a lot of questions, and got some insight into the area of work that I wanted to work in, which was funds management. He was working in hedge funds. I'm sort of working in funds management now. But through that experience, I think I picked up a lot of information that ordinarily you won't get, right? And if any of you have any aspirations of getting into a really competitive field, networking is something that you probably hear about, but it's not about you know, just collecting business cards. It's about getting to know people. And over that year, I actually got to know him and picked up a lot of information that you don't get in textbooks, right? So if you're going to university and you think that's going to get you a job, depending on what you want to work in, it may not work. So through that, I was lucky enough to meet with one of the greatest Australian sports people ever, and also he helped me get to where I'm working today. So ordinarily, you leave off with an inspiring statement, but Amy's going to speak, so that's his job.